It's a muggy summer morning on July 16, 1952. Around 10 a.m., 21-year-old Shell Alpert, a Coast Guard seaman and naval photographer, is inside his photo lab at the air station in Salem, Massachusetts, cleaning his camera. Glancing out the window, he suddenly spots strange lights in the sky. Quickly, he snatches his camera off the desk and makes UFO history. Four mysterious lights appear in an asymmetrical V formation in the sky above the airfield to the right of some power plant smokestacks. The lights don't seem to resemble distinct geometric shapes, but instead resemble rough blobs of illumination. Journalist MJ Benaya speaks to the 70 years of street cred these blurry photos have earned in the UFO community.
The fact that this came from a Navy photographer only lent to its credibility with the mainstream press at the time. And when this picture came out, was released, it definitely hit newspapers around the globe.
The Alpert photos were eventually analyzed as part of the government's massive Project Blue Book UFO investigations.
We know that there were professors from various universities, including Harvard, who looked at this picture. We also know that there were a lot of intelligence agencies and operatives trying to assess what was going on here. Of all the Project Blue Book reports between 1947 and 1969, thousands and thousands and thousands of photographs and reports were submitted. Only about 700 or so remain, according to the Air Force, unidentified. This photograph is one of those examples.
It seems the Alpert photos aren't the first UFO sighting to come out of Massachusetts.
In fact, the first recorded UFO sighting in U.S. history occurred in Massachusetts in 1639 when Governor John Winthrop recorded a sighting in his journal.
According to Winthrop's journal, three locals he described as sober, discreet men spotted a strange light in the night sky as they rowed their boat through a marsh. They claimed it moved with great speed like an arrow to a neighboring town.
People claim that this is a solid UFO story, and it remains unknown to this day.
Like the Winthrop diaries, the Alpert photos still spark debate.
Some think that this is definitive proof of extraterrestrials, and others think this is just a smudge on a lens.
The time of day may not seem like such a big deal with the Alpert photos, but in fact, it radically changes our entire investigation. You'll often see daytime photos where the sky is so bright it actually looks white. In this photo, not even close. I mean, look at this. The UFOs far exceed the daylight. Look at that. Not even the chrome car bumpers are shining as brightly. So what could possibly be so bright at an already well-lit time of day? We ask our experts to shine some lights on this mystery. First, the obvious question. Could these images simply be everyday objects like planes or birds reflecting sunlight? Astronomer and VFX artist Mark D'Antonio looks to other objects in the scene for clues.
Now, considering that the sun is very, very bright, you might say, well, could these be objects illuminated by the sun? Well, we don't see direct sunlight on the cars. It looks like it's a cloudy day. So these objects up here, they're exceedingly bright. Something lit up by the sun. Looking that bright, I think, is a long shot. And I don't think that's what we're seeing here.
Could this then be a deliberate camera trick, like double exposure? Astrophotographer Andrew McCarthy thinks it's worth a look.
Double exposure, where you take two photos without advancing the film, and you end up with both exposures on the same slide. If you took a photo of your parking lot, your factory, and then you took a photo of just these four random bright lights, but in a dark room, you could potentially get a result like this. I think that this image is low contrast enough to explain that.
But McCarthy admits that despite the low contrast, other tip-offs to double exposure seem to be lacking.
One artifact from double exposures is ghosting, where you see unwanted elements of that second photograph in the developed final product. I don't really see too much of that here.
D'Antonio looks to the witness statement for critical info.
He was cleaning his camera and then looked out the window. So the picture was taken through a window. That's a very interesting development.
Could that window be the key to solving this decades-old mystery?
It's possible that when he was taking that picture through the window, he did not notice that there were possibly 4 lights behind him reflecting in the window. I'm thinking that we're looking at something that was actually reflected in the window.
But could the Air Force's Project Blue Book investigators really have overlooked such an obvious explanation? And what's more, McCarthy sees problems with D'Antonio's theory. He says any reflection would mimic the perspective of the lights, which appear smaller the further away they are. But this photo shows the exact opposite.
I don't really know what we're looking at here. It could be some lights reflected off a window, or it could be something of supernatural origin. We don't really know.
Our verdict? Genuine UFO. We think both our experts presented compelling cases, but the reflection theory just doesn't hold up, and we can't think of anything else that would explain these UFOs. If you can, let us know. It's May 13th, 2009, and night owl Yalçın Yalman is stargazing in the suburbs of Istanbul, Turkey. Shortly after 3 a.m., something strange appears in the sky over the Sea of Marmara. Yalçın immediately grabs his Canon Mini DV camera, a videotape, and records this. It appears to be some sort of saucer-shaped craft. It's hovering silently for half an hour about a mile away and 500 feet above the sea. But watch what happens when Yalçın zooms in. Do you see that? Now take a look at the footage when we zoomed in and cleaned it up for you to get a better look. Yalçın says that what you're seeing here is a cockpit window. And there, inside the alleged craft, he's saying you can see 2 aliens piloting this thing. Right here and right here. Yalçın is sure he's made contact. In fact, he claims it's been happening for years.
Konuşmalar bana dalga dalga geliyordu. Neden seçildiğimi ben hala anlamış değilim ama çok şeyleri bana yardım ettiklerine inanıyorum ve bizler olmasak yarın öbür gün gelecekte bunlar insanoğlunu eğiteceğine de inanıyorum.
For millennia, strange things have been reported in the skies over Turkey. In 74 BC, during a battle between Greek and Roman armies, thousands of soldiers witnessed a flaming object of molten silver, shaped like a wine jar, flying above them. And according to Cydonia Institute Director George Haas, Yalçın's video is just one of many recent sightings.
In 2016, Turkish air pilots reported that they saw a UFO go over their plane with green lights. The pilots say they saw this UFO about 17,000 feet, but the airport authorities reported that they had no evidence on their radar of any of the sightings that the pilots saw.
Now, we've never seen a window on a UFO before. Yalçın's cockpit aliens appear to be a unique phenomenon, and one the Turkish government has taken very seriously.
The Turkish government came back and said that this is authentic, and this spacecraft has nothing to do with any military programs or anything. So this could be extraterrestrial.
UFOs are such a hot topic in Turkey that in 2001, a museum opened in Istanbul containing various photos, videos, reports, models, and even a library about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. But are we ready to add this video to the collection? Our experts take a deeper dive into the footage. We begin with forensic video investigator Michael Primo.
We always look to the metadata first. And this block-like pixelation, this is an indication that excessive amounts of compression were applied to these pixel areas. But I don't detect any evidence of this program interacting with something that would introduce CGI. There's no indication that they were trying to deceive or mislead.
So if it doesn't appear we have a doctored video, has Yalçın really been dealing with aliens? We take that question to astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio.
Back in 2009, we didn't have the cameras we have today. He's zooming in on it all the way. And in my view, I don't think that you're gonna be able to see anybody in a craft like that. That's like saying, if you zoom in on an airliner going by, can you see people looking out of the windows? And the answer is no, because the windows are still too small.
So what does aviation expert Tim McMillan think? Turkey is a NATO member and has the second largest army in the organization. So is it possible this could be an experimental aircraft?
This is a particular area where you do have military drills. And in fact, NATO holds different annual drills that simulating wartime environments. However, all of the telltale signs of aircraft as we know them are really kind of thrown out of the window. We definitely don't have any aircraft that are lenticular or saucer-shaped. Beyond that, if it's going to be an aircraft, you're going to hear something, whether it's the jet engines of a plane or that rotor thunder of a helicopter. And in this case, the individual said he didn't hear anything while filming it.
So what else could this be? McMillan has a theory.
Whenever you're filming something over water, especially at a great distance, there can be some weird illusions that can make things look extremely unusual, including ships. They appear to float on the horizon in air, which is just an optical illusion. And so could we be looking at fishing vessels that are on the horizon, forming the top half of our dome-shaped craft, and the reflection of the lights in those vessels coming in onto the water surface at the horizon suddenly makes that nice saucer shape. And in fact, can deceptively make it appear like it's in the sky.
Here's the problem, though. Those optical illusions, often known as Fata Morgana, are typically seen lower over the horizon than where Yalchin was pointing his camera.
It's a case that's been around for a long time. That doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's not solved yet.
Our verdict? We're going to classify it as a genuine UFO. Our experts make good points, and we'll agree that those images in the windows probably aren't alien space pilots. But that doesn't mean we can identify what this thing actually is until we get more definitive evidence. An enigmatic radio broadcast that no one claims to run has been transmitting a monotonous droning sound like this one, virtually non-stop for over 5 decades. The buzzing is occasionally interrupted by a voice speaking Russian. Ryan Schaum, an amateur radio enthusiast, runs one of many websites devoted to the phenomenon.
What originally got me into the buzzer was the mystery of it, like who's broadcasting this, why they are, and what possible purpose could it have. I did kind of get hooked to it, so I just keep on searching for more information about it, hoping to find some sort of rational explanation.
Investigator Chase Klotsky says thousands of dedicated enthusiasts like Ryan are heating up the internet with talk that the buzzer's origin is the former Soviet Union.
We trace it back basically to Russia. Could be anything from the communication device to speak to submarines or a coded way to speak to spies, their military.
There is another theory that the buzzer is part of a nuclear deterrent system, a so-called dead hand station.
The theory behind the dead man switch is that if Russia is attacked and decimated, the buzzer stops, and then nuclear weapons are automatically deployed in retaliation to the West.
The nuclear dead hand system is part of a long-standing policy called Mutual Assured Destruction, or MAD. If all sides know nuclear war is unwinnable, no one will start one. But is the buzzer really a part of that, or does it have another disturbing purpose? Let's ask the experts. We turn to our military expert, Tim McMillan. He studied the history of the buzzer, and he's skeptical it has anything to do with nukes.
In 2010, the signal ceased. Very fortunately, we didn't see the launch of any missiles. We didn't see apocalypse, and so that would suggest that it's probably not linked to some type of nuclear detonation device.
So, what about the submarine signaling theory?
When I first heard about this buzzer, I thought it must be a way to communicate with submarines deep in the oceans, but that requires very low frequency transmission.
ELF, or extremely low frequency waves, can penetrate seawater hundreds of meters deep. At these frequencies, the signal doesn't degrade much due to atmospheric conditions or the depth of the ocean. But Kaku says the buzzer works at a much higher frequency. So he thinks it's being used to communicate with people on land, but at a great distance.
You might say to yourself, well, why don't the Russians simply use the internet? Well, the problem with that is security. And so you want to use over-the-horizon radio for certain kinds of sensitive communication.
Shortwave radio is phenomenally good at sending messages past the line of sight because these messages actually bounce off the ionosphere and then come back down to Earth. So you could shoot messages across entire continents. These regular intervals of noise, they're basically saturating this shortwave radio channel so other people can't hop on the station and compete with you.
But why do that? Dr. Gottesman says that by claiming the frequency, Russia can use it at any time as a so-called numbers station to send secret messages, often hidden in a group of numbers as they are read out loud. And McMillan agrees.
It's fairly unsophisticated, but a brilliant way to communicate with your deep cover spies who may be all the way across the world.
Other countries, including the US, have allegedly used so-called numbers stations for espionage. And if it's an old-school form of spycraft, McMillan says it's still useful.
The idea of continuing to use it today, why not? It makes your adversaries have to listen in. It makes them try to crack a code that maybe you're not even using anymore. But it could be something else that we haven't even considered. It's an unknown. Who knows? If nothing else, it's a mystery.
So our verdict is mixed. We're pretty sure it's a Russian number station, but we don't know exactly what sort of messages it's sending, if it's currently in use, or if it's a ruse, or if it's just a placeholder for the frequency. So for now, we're just gonna have to keep listening with anticipation for the next big clue. It's May 2020, and when Alexa Walkovitz learned her mother's dog, Lala, was lost, she and her friend Anna did something you might find hard to believe.
We look in our home, we pick the settings, and we just think really, really long and hard about Lala. Let's visualize in our mind us finding her.
What? Well, believe it or not, it's all about an app called Randonautica. Alexa and her friend set an intention and thought of her mother's dog. The Randonautica app, which claims to direct people to a real-world encounter with those intentions, then displayed random GPS coordinates near her home in the Mojave Desert.
We're walking forward, and Anna turns to me and kind of like says, "What's that?" There was a little animal.
Where did you come from?
And I realized it was a dog.
I didn't even see it.
Take another look. Out of nowhere, this dog appears in the desert. Now, it turned out this dog wasn't her mother's. It had escaped from a nearby property. And although Alexa never found Lala, she is convinced the app taps into the power of the mind.
It was kind of a healing adventure because maybe that was my dog speaking through that dog and was trying to say to you, like, listen, it's okay. Here I am to comfort you for a moment.
Experiences like Alexa's made Randonautica the craze of 2020. In just 3 months, the app drew over 15 million downloads, with thousands of posts on social media of people declaring their intentions.
The intention for my Randonaut journey is purple.
Heading to random locations.
Is that a purple house?
And finding their wishes at least partially fulfilled. Like thinking of purple and then having the app lead to this backyard.
This is kind of blowing my mind right now.
So does the world of the mind connect with the physical world? Can Randonautica really manifest our intentions? We asked our friendly physicist to come up with an experiment to test it. Dr. Hakeem Oluseyi and Dr. Michio Kaku give us our guidelines.
In order to test this idea to see if it works, you have to do a lot of tests to remove the statistical uncertainties, and you have to keep very careful records of when you're right and when you're wrong.
There it is.
Second, when it comes to a goal, make it specific and not metaphorical.
My intention was adventure and cool stuff, and this is so cool.
Not something that looks pretty.
Wow.
No, cash. That, to me, would be a very convincing experiment.
So that's just what we did, asking our test subject to declare cash as her intention.
$100. $100.
The app generates random GPS coordinates. Now let's see where we're going.
Part of a hairbrush.
So far, no cash.
All right, my intention, $100. $100. Found a weird buckle thing.
Our subject keeps repeating the experiment.
My intention, $100.
Then, at one location, no dollar bills, but
Found some batteries. So we didn't find any money at this location, but there is a bank really close to here. So you never know, maybe that's what drew me here.
like many Randonautica stories, the exact intention didn't manifest, but something kind of related. So what's happening here? Kaku believes the explanation is something called the synchronicity effect, a phenomenon where people interpret two coincidental events as intertwined.
Wow. Synchronicity, for example, is you're thinking about Joe, and Joe calls you on the telephone. And you say to yourself, aha, I knew it, I'm psychic.
This is kind of blowing my mind right now.
But Kaku explains while everyone remembers the occasional hits,
Most of the time, they're misses. You forget about them. But think of all the times when you thought about Jane and Harry, and they didn't call you.
our verdict? Most likely coincidence, which comes from people making very general wishes like something that will make me happy. But there is a lot we still don't know about this universe. But that's what we think. What do you think?